question you may ask is, all of this is for what? We come into equity markets पैसा बनाने के लिए, तो 100 रुपया डाला 150 हुआ, अच्छी बात है, नहीं हुआ, not good. But that's pretty much it. So why bother with all this? मैं इन्वेस्ट करूंगा SIP में, लमसम में, और एक once in a while कुछ डोनेट कर दूंगा किसी चैरिटी को. So isn't that enough? Why bother with ESG? It's a pertinent question, and a lot of people did ask it in the initial days of ESG. I did too. I thought, you can conflating the two issues, right? There is a what do we tell the managers of a company? What do you tell a CEO? What do you focus on? Growth of the business, ki ESG वगैरह के चक्कर में you'll have to reduce lots of things then in your businesses, or you might do business differently, which might not be the best for the shareholders and employees and others. But that has become essentially what can be called old school thinking, the 20th century thinking, which was very shareholder focused, as I said, and it's now become more stakeholder focused. And since there's no upper limit on who you can call stakeholders, the whole earth is essentially a stakeholder in every business, because what you do affects everyone else. This backlash has essentially led investors to think about holding their investing companies accountable. Now comes more important part. So this part is still ethical consideration, saying, I might make money, but at what cost? The next question is, and this is personally my realization also, that ESG investing or ESG compliance, even at a company level, forget stock markets and listed companies and all, even as a company, if I think of myself as a CEO of a company, it's actually good for the financial performance to be good on environment, social, and governance scores. So let's take each of them in isolation so that we sort of see that they are indeed useful. Governance is a very obvious correlate, right? In fact, a couple of others have also talked about this. Saurav Mukherjee, in his Good and Clean pitch or Good and Clean concept, talks about how the clean part is to do with governance. Clean companies have good financial performance in the medium to long run, vis-a-vis companies which aren't clean. So there are many definitions of clean. Let's take a couple of simple examples. Holding structure. If your holding structure is convoluted, DHFL was a very good example. So you have sister concerns which are unlisted. Your holding is not through the natural person, which is a promoter, but another holding company in between, which is unlisted. There are lots of dealings between them. The intercorporate deposits keep going back and forth. Ranbaxy and Religare had a similar challenge back then. They're still probably fighting in the court. So the more complex the holding is, the more prone to governance issues it is. Amtech was a good example. Whereas if it's a simple thing that one promoter holds directly, I think Premji Foundation is a very good example. Single foundation holds everything, and that's it. There is nothing else. No sister concerns, no unlisted entities with which there are dealings. Everything is above board. Other example is change of auditors. If you change your auditor every second year, there's something probably fishy going on. And there are many other examples. Enron was the biggest example of governance failure. And Enron's dealings pre the scandal were already looking fairly complex. And they actually thought of it as a positive thing, the managers of Enron. And many others back then at least didn't question that logic, that more complex and opaque dealings are not good for transparency. And so as they say, sunlight is the best disinfectant in the corporate finance world. What it means is keep things transparent. Everybody will start to behave relatively better. And so obviously in India also the transparency has been becoming a bit better with every passing regulatory requirement of disclosures and so on. Insider trading, for example, which I don't mean the illegal variety, but the fact that promoters are selling their shares. Now they have to disclose to the exchange that they're selling shares. Directors and so on. So all of this has become very sort of mainstream now. So governance is generally linked with good performance. There is ample proof of that. And so just saying that staying good on governance is obviously good for companies' financial health. There's no doubt about that. We have a question here. We can see it as investors putting pressure on companies to be more ESG compliant, right? Is the question. Short answer is yes. We are essentially saying, if as investors, if you tell people, companies to be more compliant and say that we'll buy your stock more, then that's an obvious way to pressurize them into being ESG compliant. But the argument I'm making here is that it's good for them also, which is to say, even if my investors don't care about ESG compliance, if I am more ESG compliant, my financial performance will improve, and that my stock price will improve just by virtue of my financial performance. So that also is there. It's not just that it's a fad, so I have to just adhere to the fad. It's like .com, right? So when .com era companies essentially put a .com at the end of their name and stock price surged. They didn't do anything technological. So it's not like that. So it's not to say I just want to be ESG compliant because my investor are asking for it, which is a legitimate uh, ask. But even for financial performance of the company itself, profitability, stability of margins is good for that. Social also is important. So what constitutes social is gender diversity. So board, having more women in board of a company has proven, at least in US and Europe, to have superior financial performance, less risky decisions, and greater transparency. And all of this obviously leading to a better governance and better financial performance. Same way, treating your employees well. I mean, leaving aside some sad stories of how Amazon is a very bad place to work for employees, most other places which are good performers, either in terms of stock price or in terms of their financials, are companies which treat their employees well. So many IT companies, Infosys, Wipro, etc. My own erstwhile employer, BCG, is consistently voted the best place in the world to work for, or in the top 3 in general. And the financial performance speaks for itself. I mean, it's not a listed company in India, but wherever you can get your hands on some of these companies' financials, you know that companies which treat their employees well end up performing better than companies which don't. So there straight away your S of ESG, the social component gets covered. Likewise, if you're taking care of the communities that you are a part of. So for example, if I'm a metal manufacturing company, I have a plant in a less known area, say Orissa or some part of Andhra, Simandhra, and I set up a plant, and that plant potentially can cause pollutants to enter this river. And if I leave it alone and say, forget it, I don't care, that's not my worry, uh, at some point that might come to boil. I'll have get bad publicity. I may have lawsuits. I may have government shutting down the plant, saying this is unhealthy. Whereas if I spend that energy and money upfront by looking at my community as a stakeholder, which they have no stake in the company, but that we are in the same physical space and we have better, uh, that might keep my relationships with the community better, avoid all these lawsuit risks and all that, and improve my performance in terms of reduced risks. So that's again a social component of ESG, helping you better through uh, financial performance as well. We have one more question. Great, we have crossed 100 viewers. Congrats. Well, then there is environment. Now, environment is a bit less direct than social and governance in terms of financial performance, but increasingly you can see, especially in the West, there are trends where people prefer organic food, for example, right? Or ethical practices driven sort of food creation, or even clothes or toys or whatever else. Likewise, environmentally damaging paints and other such chemicals are looked down upon, and those products are shunned. So if you happen to have 4 different product lines and one of them is environmentally damaging and 3 are not, your customers will end up preferring the other 3 gradually. So if you have to do a capital expenditure today on one of those 4, you would be better served. Your company will be better served. Forget the environment, but just the company will be better served if you invest in the thing that is not going to go out of fashion, which is the environmentally damaging. So since customers are also pressurizing companies to steer towards environmentally friendlier practices, it makes sense for my financial performance, if I'm the CEO, to have my company invest in technologies which are environmentally friendly as well. So that's the financial performance part. Now let's come to stock market performance. So here we'll see in the next page the demonstration of performance of ESG versus regular. But short answer here is good financial performance generally translates into good stock performance. So especially in the medium term, so then that's a simple logic. From the second point we saw here, that will anyway translate into good stock performance. And I am anyway then better served by holding an ESG compliant company. And there's also a self-fulfilling dynamic, which is even if the financial performance impact is not big. So let's say company A and company B both are in FMCG domain, and company A says, I don't care about ESG, I just do business as usual, compliant with the law, etc. But that's all. And second one says, no, I'll go that extra mile and become more ESG friendly on all three counts of environment, social, and governance. Now, they both initially have the same financial performance, and let's say that PAT, EBITDA, everything is same, growth rate is same. But investors say that, oh, this company is better performing in terms of ESG, this thing. So in general, the portfolios which are constrained by ESG mandates will prefer company B. And the stock price of company B then will be at a premium to the stock price of company A consistently. So the P ratio will be higher, P by B ratio will be higher for the same amount of growth, same amount of EBITDA, and so on. So that's what we mean by the self-fulfilling dynamic. How long that will go on? Maybe for a few years, 5-6 years at least. It makes sense to do that preference. How do we make sure that we are investing in ESG stocks is another question. I think that's the next thing we're going to impact. So just hold on for just a minute.